Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, and thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning here in Faith in Our Hometown. We're always appreciative when you join us for a little conversation on a Sunday morning. This morning, my guest is going to be Josh Coate. A few months ago, I was reading in the paper about something happening called a Nextgen worship that I did assume meant next generation. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what does that look like, and what does that even mean, and what are they all about? So we picked up the phone or got on the computer, one or the other, and made the contact. And so Josh is joining us this morning to talk about Nextgen worship. It's a project that they've been working on now for the last couple of years, a collaborative effort with many of the different churches and worship leaders in the area. So Josh is here to talk about that this morning. And we're going to talk a little bit about worship and how to do that for the next generation. But we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, so stay tuned. And again, thanks for joining us this morning.
From childhood, whenever I was about 12, I would say, my weight really started climbing, and it never really plateaued. I've tried low-carb diets, high-protein diets. I've tried calorie diets. It's very important to Dr. Lou that this is a team effort, so a primary care doctor following up with me regularly. And the dietitian was very helpful on providing recipes and helpful information to help me be successful in my journey. I am very active and I play sports with the kids. We like to go play volleyball. I've done some warrior dashes.
Again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning for Faith in Our Hometown. As I said before the break, my guest this morning is Josh Coate. Josh, first tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm in love with Jesus.
Okay.
He's my BFF.
Okay.
Literally. We're just doing all kinds of things together. And one of those things is leading worship. I've been doing that since the conception of Impact Life Church, and lead worship there every Sunday morning. We've done that, we're going into our 8th year now. So that's kind of what put me on the road to getting involved with the community of worship.
And that's what Nextgen worship is all about.
It's kind of hard to explain, right?
Well, yeah, well, now here's going to be your chance. You can explain it right now. So what is Nextgen worship?
Well,
Tell me about
Nextgen
that.
worship is just a name that can be associated with a movement of worship in our region. Okay. And it really started as a podcast. Another worship leader from another church, Clint Kaler, started looking for relationship, basically. And he sought out relationship with like hearts, that being worship leaders from other different churches around our area, and began interviewing them on his podcast. I was one of the persons that he interviewed. I had met Clint probably a year prior to that at a weekend event for like a men's retreat or something like that. About a year before, I was interviewed by him, and then I was just gravitated toward his language, and he was talking about unity and some of the things that were burning in my own heart, and found out that it's the same story and the same dream of many, many other people, but it was never realized until we all began to dream together. And so when we did that, we started thinking of ways that we could bring our community of churches together so that we could be unified under one thing, and that's not going to be a bunch of guys preaching. I mean, it's great that we have pastors and priests to instruct us, but what can the body do together? We can worship. And so we all came under...
Now there's an interesting thought to me. So some of what you're saying is that in some ways it's the preaching and the theology that sometimes separates, but the worship actually brings everybody together.
It's kind of sad to
it's
think
interesting.
about that.
I mean, I've never quite thought about this way, but it's an interesting thought. Because we do get tangled up theologically.
Right.
We do. We get ourselves tangled up theologically, but if everybody just, kind of like is praising God together, That's not a bad thought. I like this kind of.
So doctrinally, we may be different. We may not agree on everything.
Right.
But most people don't have a problem with lyrics and songs and singing spontaneous love songs to Jesus. So we began to do that 24 hours, nonstop worship in different church buildings all over the region every month. And we started that about 2.5 years ago. And we've been in Christian churches, we've been in Pentecostal churches, we've been in Baptist churches, been in non-denominational churches. And it's multi-church teams that come together and fill the time slots, and we just worship for 24 hours. And I believe what it's done is it's shifted the atmosphere a bit in our own region.
Interesting. Excuse me. So now tell me some of the other folks that have been involved with this to this point in time.
Oh man, we've got probably 30 different congregations, probably 50 to 60 different worship leaders, plus their teams, musicians, singers.
These would be mostly Christian churches?
It's all kinds.
Really?
We've got everything from we haven't been in a Catholic church yet, so we'd love to come and do one.
You know, my only problem is when you were talking
Peter.
about 24 hours the problem is we got too many of our own services that we'd have to break for to do that service and then go back to the other.
Right,
That'd be the only problem, because otherwise we'd love to have you. Maybe if we could do something like a Friday night to a Saturday or something, or Friday afternoon to Saturday afternoon or something. I don't know. I'd be willing to talk about it.
Yeah, we recently, SOS Ministries just acquired the building, Washington Elementary School.
Okay, yeah.
And they've turned it into Washington Hope Center. Just a few weekends ago, we were there doing a night of worship where we just did about 2 or 3 hours, and it was dynamic. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, and even if we didn't necessarily do it in the church building itself, we had a few other buildings we might be able to do that, and it'd be kind of fun. I mean, I think it'd be interesting, let's put it this way. I know our youth listen to a lot of other Christian music other than what we just necessarily always do in church. As a matter of fact, our college group, for Catholic Campus Ministry, they will do a contemporary piece at our 6 p.m. Mass, once in a while, and they enjoy it. They love it, and so do the people love it. Now, our idea, for us and Lutherans, Episcopals, and people who would be more, people would mostly look at the higher church, there's more structure than just the praise and worship music to our worship and to our types of music that we would use. But I do know that that's one of the things that my young people are always after us is, can we use more, contemporary music? And it's just so we always look for those opportunities when we can bring in a piece or two that really speaks to their spirituality and use it even in our liturgies. But you gotta plug the right piece in the right place, otherwise it doesn't work. It kind of like clunks or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the interesting things that we found is we have been able to take part and participate in many different styles of worship. And that can be hymns or very organized pieces, a cappella pieces. We had a Church of Christ that said, well, we really can't participate because we don't use instruments. Well, you don't have to use instruments.
Right.
You can come and worship how you worship.
Worship a cappella.
Some of that is some of the most beautiful worship you'll ever hear in your life, is just voices that blend together in beautiful harmony. And it's a perfect picture of the church, that we all come together, diverse as we are, different parts playing our own roles and making a beautiful harmony together. So
I'm making less than harmonious noises right now, but hey,
man.
But at any rate, but I love that. So how does it work? So I mean, you do 24 hours, but like everybody just gets a time slot and then comes in and just does their thing, and then
we usually do like 1 to 2 hours time slots. You can sign up for 1 hour or 2 hours as a worship team. And you just come in, we set up in the round, which is in the middle of the room rather than on the stage, so there's no spotlight, there's no show, Our focus is on the presence of God.
Sure.
And so we come together and we go in the middle of the room in a round, and then you play for an hour or two, whatever your time slot is, and the next team comes in, they sit up around the round, and they begin to play together.
Play with.
The music doesn't stop.
Oh, I love that. That
just
is
continues
wonderful.
to go, and then they just take it and they lead it. Some people, have a real structured set with lots of instruments. Some people have an accordion and an acoustic guitar, and they play and they kind of spontaneously sing, and it's just really awesome. Yeah.
It does sound. I mean, I do like the concept of just saying, all right, but let's leave all of our differences at the door and let's, come to the one thing that's music, which is kind of one of those universal languages.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, with all, if everybody can come in, use their own style, do their own thing. I mean, what's in some ways keeping people from, coming together to do that, which is kind of neat.
All of those upcoming Unite Worship gatherings can be found on uniteworshipgathering.com. And you can also sign up to be a host church. If you wanted to host something like this at your church, like at St. Peter's or wherever you wanted to host it, you can just sign up right there and we'll get you on the schedule. Right now we're doing it quarterly for the time being. So we just signed one up just a little while ago with someone else here in the studio. So it's a great place to go to find out when those are coming
up. Now your website is nextgenworship.com. But what was the one you just mentioned? If somebody wanted to send
UniteWorshipGatherings.com.
UniteWorshipGatherings.com. Okay.
Yeah, you can also find it there on our page.
So if they use the Next Gen Worship, they can get tagged over the other one.
Right.
Interesting.
So this is kind of just a place where people can grow together as the church. I mean, really, if we go back before the Protestant church, we even go back before the Roman Catholic Church, we go back to an upper room in downtown Jerusalem where like hearts got together and they prayed and they heard a sound like a mighty rushing wind and they were filled with the Holy Spirit, and then they became a family. And that is really the heart of what we're doing, is relational, building family, building community. And we've done that through Unite Worship Gatherings, and we continue to do that any way that we see we're led by the Spirit to do something else. And that kind of led us to kind of figuring out, how do we encounter God? And we brainstorm a lot together. And we said, how do we encounter God? Well, we read it, we listen to it, or we watch it. And the same thing with like your show, Faith in Our Hometown. People encounter God through many different mediums. And so we said, let's produce those things. Let's produce media that help people encounter God. So we began to do videos. We began to do, we ramped up the podcast and we got it formatted so it'd be syndicated. And we were on 2 nights a week on New Life Radio, 105.3, with the Next Gen Worship broadcast now. It's also there on the website. So we talk about stuff like this all the time, every week, and just how can we steward heaven here on earth?
Because that's really, I mean, let's face it, that's what all worship, purports to do, is kind of open up that window between this world and the other one. Open up those windows between, heaven and earth. So we always used to talk about it in terms of, liminal space. How do you set up a liminal space where, you're crossing the threshold and can give people an opportunity to actually encounter something bigger than where they're stuck.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun. Yeah. Fancy words for a Sunday morning, don't you think? But at any rate, we're here this morning. We're talking with Josh Coate, who's the creative director for Next Gen Worship, kind of about their philosophy and kind of how they got started. We are going to be taking a break here, a quick break in just a second, but we hope that you stick with us as we kind of talk a little bit more in our next segment about how what worship does for the human heart. Okay?
Awesome.
So stick around and don't go away. We'll be right back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, thanks for sticking with us. And again, I've been talking with Josh Coate, who's from Next Gen Worship. Josh, you're a worship leader in your own church, but yet you guys have kind of come up with this meta movement, if you will, meta worship, that kind of breaks through some of the denominational lines to kind of bring people together into an experience where they might just figure out how they can connect without entangled theologies.
Right.
Yeah, so I love it. I'm glad that you're doing it. So other than, you started to talk about some of the other stuff that you guys were doing rather than just the 24-hour things. So in your podcast and everything, give me some ideas of what it is you guys have been talking about.
Well, normally we have 3 segments. The first segment, we just banter about absolutely nothing. Whatever happens to be
Kind of like
having
this
fun.
or what?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, we just talk. We just have fun together. We tell jokes and we razz on each other a little bit, and then we usually go into a topic of just kind of what we feel the Spirit is speaking at this time in this moment. What's that rhema knowledge that the Lord is talking with His church about, and then we usually interview somebody, usually somebody either locally or even nationally. We've had several different influential people on the broadcast, and you can listen to that on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. and then it re-airs on Saturday night at 10 p.m. on New Life Radio.
The next week.
Okay. Yeah, the same
following
week.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's been a really great journey. We've had probably 120 episodes since we started broadcasting 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we did. We've done that. Another way that we've stewarded it is through video and media. Just really trying to get stuff out there that kind of tweaks people's perspective a little bit about church and how to be unified. I like to tell people I'm a guy without any problems, and people go, "What?" Everybody's got their problems. I only had one problem, Father Jay, and that was I was far away from my Father, my Heavenly Father, and Jesus Christ brought me into relationship with Him. So I don't have any problems anymore. Whatever is temporal, and it's not real. And so that's one of the ideas, and being unified together and wrapping arms around each other and really having relationship, not based on what we agree on, but based upon who we are.
Yeah.
And so that means I'm your friend, and that the equivalent of me being your friend is I'm never going away. No matter if you offend me, no matter if we don't agree, no matter what, I'm always going to be there.
Well, and again, that sentiment is one that this particular show is based on as well. It's just kind of like we don't have to agree on everything in order to have a conversation with one another. Right. We don't have to agree on everything in order to even call each other brothers.
Right. Right.
We can, worship in different places and have different theologies even and do all those things. And each one of us has to be true to ourselves or to what we think God is calling us to do.
Absolutely.
In the way that God is calling us to do it. But I believe that every once in a while God inspires us to do things like you guys have done, as well. And that is to say, let's reach across a little bit and show the world that, that we can find some things to unite on.
Yeah.
Even if we, believe that we're supposed to keep doing our thing. But what can we unite on, and where can we find the common ground? How can we do that with each other?
Absolutely.
And you guys are doing that. I think this is impressive. I mean, like I say, I just was thinking, well, it's kind of a new creative way to worship or something. When I saw the title, in the paper or whatever it was a few months ago.
Right.
And so this is kind of neat because there's like a kind of like I say a movement to it, if you will.
Right. Right.
More so than just worship service.
Well, one of the ways that we've tried to curate relationship in this, the United Worship gatherings are very vertical. They're very focused on the presence of God, which I think is the most important relationship. And then through media, we've tried to be influential, but that's not enough. We have to be relational. Mm-hmm. We have to build community. We have to build relationship. We have to champion other people. We have to, come alongside and help others and cry with them when they're down and laugh with them when they're up and all that good stuff that the Word tells us to do. So we've also, outside of Sunday morning, we all have our churches that we serve in, and Sunday morning service is awesome. It's never been better. And I think, it's something that I champion every week. But we've also started meeting in living rooms.
We would call that the domestic church.
Right. Some people have cell groups in their churches and that. Of course, our flavor is worship. So we come together in a home a couple of times a month in a couple different homes, and we just worship and just see where the Holy Spirit is going to lead that night. And the gifts of the Spirit manifest in those meetings. And people pray for one another, and healings have taken place. And we've seen, lives being restored, and somebody that was, not understanding what their identity was, and in a really bad place, in a negative place, and their esteem was really low, getting around like minds and getting around people that champion them, and those people lifting them back up and getting them back on their feet again and saying, you are made for this. This is who you are. This is your identity, and you're a child of God. You're a daughter of God, or you're a son of God, and you are born for destiny, heaven's destiny. And your circumstances don't define you. God defines you, and He says you're good and holy, and you can stand blameless before Him. And those kinds of things are needed. I mean,
sure,
that's a deep well that people can drink from.
Oh yeah,
and so
and never and it'll never go dry.
Absolutely,
in terms of those things.
Right.
I think that in terms of that whole concept of community, I mean, that's one of those things that sometimes we lose sight of. Our whole society and everything is so individualized, and it's just excuse me and my needs and all those things. And I think that when we get that spirit of community that kind of pulls us all together in a way that helps us to support each other. I mean, yes, we've all got our individual stuff, but when we're bound together in that community and that life in the community, I mean, I'm always one that says, Jesus. If Jesus wanted to do it alone, why would He have ever given us the church?
Right.
So I love that community aspect, and I love what's happening, for you all in those, settings. So the home worship, you guys have been doing that a couple times a week too.
We've been doing it a couple times a month.
Okay.
So I was
going to say, I don't know. Well, you got
every
a
other week
lot
or
of
so.
meetings.
Yeah, every other week or so we get together in homes, and that's been going on for about almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
So.
Now those are obviously those are going to be smaller gatherings because of the size of the homes.
Yeah, we usually run anywhere from 20 to 30 folks at those gatherings. We pack out the living rooms pretty good.
I was going to say,
and it's always different. It's always unique to that meeting. It's not like a formatted thing or a formula. It's just we come together and just expect, and it happens. It's beautiful. It's really a cool thing. But that's called house fires. In a very positive connotation.
Okay,
right?
that's good.
So we have the house fires a couple of times a month, and it's just another way that we can steward heaven. That's what we're trying to do.
Cool. So, I mean, do you guys got any dreams that you're trying to do that, or are you just kind of riding the wave as you've got it envisioned right now?
No, of course we're always dreaming. We like to play catch. Clint Kaler, the founder of Nextgen Worship, and I throw ideas back and forth all the time. I mean, what if we could do this? And we dream big. Mm-hmm. One of those things was to put together, some way to put the identity of the church on their lips. How do we do that? Well, one of the ways that we've found that we have that identity is through worship. And so we needed to learn how to write worship and to publish it and distribute it. So about 2 years ago, we developed a record label here locally. It's called Identity Music. And we took some people out of our own community, husband and wife, Nick and Ashley Smith, who are dynamic worship leaders, just extremely talented, both songwriters. And we got together with them. We just started developing some of their songs. We took a trip last year to Nashville, and we've got some friends in Nashville who are songwriters and artists. And we sat down with them. We wrote with Nick, wrote a couple of songs with some songwriters out of Nashville, and we're now recording pre-production on their album. Over the last year and a half, we've built a studio. And it's all just totally funded by God. It's like we have these dreams and we put the vision out there, and we've just got a community of people that have come on board and supported it, not only financially, but have cheered us on and said, this is great, we could do this. And I mean, Nick and Ashley's stuff is just I mean, it'll get you.
Get you?
It'll get you right in
And
your
you
heart.
said that they're going to have a concert tomorrow night.
It's tonight.
Tonight, Sunday
Yeah,
night. So
tonight,
the 2nd, July the 2nd.
Freedom Fest 2017. It's going to be out at Calvary at Brookwood, and they've got a concert out there tonight with a comedian and some other music. And they're going to have a stage out there. They've got food trucks and bounce houses. They're going to have fireworks later tonight. And Nick and Ashley are going to be on before the fireworks. It's just a celebration of the 4th of July. And we're just going to worship together tonight. It's going to be awesome.
That's great. Josh, one of the things I love about talking to you is the fact that you you guys just kind of like, get excited about something. You start talking about it, and then pretty soon you let the Lord lead you around to where it's suddenly starting to happen.
Trying to do what Jesus did, man. Do what he's doing and say what he's saying.
Yeah, sometimes I'm a little jealous. Sometimes I'm a little locked in, but you've given me at least a little impetus to want to try to break out a little bit. Well, my guest this morning has been Josh Coate, and we are been talking about Nextgen worship and how is the platform for that. So stick around. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away, and we'll be back to wrap it up in just a second.
Find out how a Mercy doctor can take care of you. At Mercy, your life is our life's work. Quality, safety, and an exceptional patient experience. Mercy is grateful to be recognized as one of the top 15 health systems in the United States. At Mercy, your life is our life's work.
Well, again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning for Faith in Our Hometown. We're glad that you spend part of your Sunday morning with us, having some fun conversations. Obviously, Josh and I both have our own churches and our own thing, but one of the things that so impressed me about Nextgen worship and what Josh and some of his friends have been about is that they've tried to figure out ways to kind of transcend, if you will, some of the things that usually lock us in. The beauty of that whole thing is that they've figured out ways to kind of think outside the box, the religious box. Not necessarily changing their faith, but trying to say, well, what if we didn't have all those denominational things that kind of, sometimes define us and pull us apart? But what if we just got to the core of everything, and that's praising and worshiping God, and then figuring out how to do that in life and modeling that in the way that we do that in a service. And then the way that they've kind of expanded that thought to do, home worship, and again, not outside of a particular denomination, but bringing everybody together. I just want to say it's been a great morning for me, thinking outside the box, and I really appreciate that, Josh. So you just all come back and join us again next Sunday morning for another Faith in Our Hometown. God bless, and you have a great week.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.